Hello and welcome to the Football Breakdown's Fantasy EFL preview show. It's Game Week 33, an international weekend, but there's still 19 matches to look at, and I'm Matthew South. Yes, hello and welcome everyone. It's just me this week as Ian is away, so I think I'm going to do the show a little differently, having no one else to kind of bounce the ideas off. So solo pod mixed with the international break means there's less to talk about, but there's still games going on. There's still players we want to highlight for this week. So I'm kind of gonna go through the process of building the team on my own for the pod rather than telling you positions and leagues in particular. So yeah, a bit different. We'll see kind of how it goes, but yeah, let's just kind of jump straight into it. So there's 6 League One and 11 League Two matches taking place on Saturday, and then we also have the added intrigue of 2 matches on Tuesday with Port Vale, Barrow, Carlisle, and MK Dons on a double game week. So I think the best place to start is to focus on those teams on a double game week and maybe see where those what players from those teams we can fit into our starting lineup, because as always, double chance of points just means that we may as well take that if any good players are on offer. So the first team I'm going to look at, and the one that stands out of the 4, is Port Vale. Now, Port Vale are 6th in League Two with a game in hand, and if they win that game in hand, they could go 3rd, or even better if they win both games in this game week and results go their way. They could be looking knocking the door at Walsall and Bradford at the top. So they're on a bit of a good run at the moment. In the last 12 games, they're 4th in the form table. They've only lost once in that time. Their last 8 home games have seen 5 wins, 3 draws, picked up 5 clean sheets in that time, scored 11 goals. Yeah, I'm kind of drawn by the defence here. They have 2 home games against 2 sides who are pretty poor away in Morecambe and Barrow. I mean, Morecambe are poor in general, but certainly not as good on the road. Full stop. And Barrow, yeah, I've kind of seen their form just dip off this season. So Port Vale having 2 home games definitely stands out to me. The defence is kind of where I kind of look at here, because you've got Connor Hall as like a standout option playing in the back 3. He's someone who I've suggested a few times on the podcast before. Pretty reliable, pretty solid point scorer, 6.6 point average, 13 clean sheets in his 34 appearances and 283 clearances. You're going to pick up some good results with him. He's off the back of an 11-point return last weekend against MK Dons. So, a home game against a team who are poor on the road. They won that game to 0. And Hall himself had a clean sheet, 8 clearances, 4 tackles for 11 points. So that is pretty much the kind of thing we're looking for again with the 2 home games. So he does feel like a really good option here. The other player I had in mind was Ben Amos in goal. I think the thing for keepers, especially on the double game week, I know it kind of counts for everyone, and I'm probably going to contradict myself a few times in the podcast, but I think with keepers in particular, you're limited in a game week to what they can really score. Like, not many keepers are going over 9 points, for example, in a game week. You're 2 points for playing, you're 5 points for the clean sheet. That's your 7, and a couple of saves gets it to 9. But any more saves, are being made on top of that. It just kind of risks the clean sheet point. You don't want to pick a keeper who is gonna be bombarded all day and potentially lose the clean sheet in a single game. So they're really like that 9-point does almost feel like the limit with a goalkeeper at times. So having 2 games, basically doubles that limit. So I was kind of looking at a few keepers for this week, and one keeper I had in mind was Walker for Bradford, but a single game week, they've been really, really good defensively recently, but they've got a tough game against Colchester, and they're off the back of a shock 1-0 home loss from last weekend. So, if he doesn't get a clean sheet there, like, that's done and dusted. And even if he does, Amos can easily outscore that in 2 games. So It's two players straight away from Port Vale that kind of take my eye. It does mean you double up defensively, so you really, really need those clean sheets. But I do think it is a good way to go this week, just given the fixtures. Other Port Vale players that kind of stand out to me, I think you'd be looking at the forward line. Last week they played Stockley, Curtis, and Talaj, I believe is how you pronounce it, in a front three, and they all scored pretty well. Stockley with 13 points as he grabbed a goal and an assist, I think it was. Yeah, it was. Curtis actually grabbed a couple of assists for 11 points, and Laurent Talaj scored. So it's a goal for him and 8 points for him. He's on 8 goals for the season now, same as Stockley, I believe. Yeah, and Curtis is on 4 goals and 6 assists. So yeah, pretty good forward options there. I'd say if it was the forward route you wanted to take, I think I'd maybe be leaning towards Talaj. Maybe it's a tough one because he's got 8 goals and 7 assists. That's 15 goal contributions in 27 appearances. So it's more than every other. He's doing something. Stockley feels like he can do a bit of everything, but he has been missing from the team recently. So that start last weekend was his first start, and he only played 71 minutes. You kind of think that maybe with them leading, he might have been pulled off early. But then with it being a double game week, are they going to force him into both games? Are they going to try and they need him for the run in? So if possible, he'll probably be the one of the three that doesn't play as many minutes. And then you've got Ronan Curtis, who is just a really talented player. Is actually quite low picked at 0.2%. He does blow hot and cold, though. You look at his points, there's a lot of 1 point returns in there, a lot of substitute appearances. He doesn't always get that start. When he does start, he does have a good return most of the time, but like, I wonder if I can actually check how many games he's actually started for them this season, if you bear with me. He's definitely someone who, when he's on the pitch, I feel like he's a great option, but he has started 17 of the 32 games he's played in. So you're kind of playing that risk, especially in a double game week. You're thinking, is he actually going to play both games, or is he going to start both games? How many minutes are he going to get? So of the three there, I'd probably pick Talaj, but then we're stuck by the 2 player limit here, and Talaj, Amos, and Connor Hall are probably my 3 options there. I'm kind of leaning towards the keeper and defender option. I'm not always too keen on doubling up that way because I just feel like 1 goal can cost you, but maybe in a double game week, it's not as bad to do. Like if your team concedes a goal, you've lost 10 points there. You've lost a clean sheet for a defender and a goalkeeper. And if you were picking Port Vale as well, which I think is going to be a very popular choice this week, they're already up to 7.5% selection. That's a 12-point swing that you'd be losing. So it's risky, but I think that is probably the way I'm going to go. So right now my team would be Amos in goal, Hall in defence. I think I'm going to then move on to the Port Vale's opponents on Tuesday, which are Barrow, a side who have picked up some good results recently, but overall been pretty poor on the road this season. They have 2 away games against AFC Wimbledon and Port Vale, so they're playing 6th and I believe it's 5th in the league at the moment. So no, sorry, 3rd in the league. Yeah, so they play 6th and 3rd. It's a pretty tough double fixture list. So straight away, I'm kind of ruling out defenders here. I just don't think they have many heavy hitters in defence when it comes to points. A lot of their big point scorers are their midfielders, and their midfielders is really interesting because they've kind of been playing a 3-4-3 recently, and you've got Sam Foley who is playing in the back three, counts as a midfielder, very experienced player whose stats are kind of standing out to me. 1.5 interceptions per 90, and his average over the last 5 starts he's made is over 10 points. I think it's like 10.2 points a game on average recently, so he's in some good form. Interestingly, with Barrow as well, they don't really see the ball a lot in their away games. 26% against Notts County, 34% against Crewe, 38% against Cheltenham. In their last away game, they did boss the game against Morecambe, but they were 1-0 down early on and 2-0 down come the second half. So yeah, they saw a lot of the ball more in that game, but that's a bit more game state. You know, they had to see the ball because Morecambe themselves don't like playing with the ball and were winning, so they were definitely just going to sit the players behind the ball and let Barrow try and break them down, which they eventually did get a 2-2 draw. But yeah, so Foley first of all stands out just with that. We've kind of said it before as well. A few players when they play as they count as a midfielder but playing defence, your clean sheet risk isn't there, but maybe a better chance to pick up interceptions. They don't get any of the other defensive bonus points, but Foley as well. He has a couple of goals on the season. You know, he's a very good player. He actually has scored in like 3 games ago against Notts County. Just really solid points returns in his starts recently. Yeah, 2 goals in his last 5 games. So definitely leaning towards Foley as a pick here. Dean Campbell's another one with a high average. I think it's 5-point average, but he is recently returning from injury. Has come off the bench in the last 2 games, hasn't started. A bit wary in a double game week of wasting a pick on someone who, as I said with the 2 Volt Vale lads, who isn't a consistent starter right now, mainly because of injury, but you know, still is in that situation of like how much is he going to see the field in 2 games. So I kind of leaning away from that one. Robbie Gotts, and Spence are interesting ones. They're not really big interception players, even though they both play in the 2-man like kind of midfield positions. They've both got some good goal contributions. Spence, they both have 6 goal contributions actually. I think Gotts has 3 goals, 3 assists. Spence has 5 goals and an assist in about 30 games, but Gotts isn't a big shooter, whereas Spence is averaging 2.5 shots per 90. So I'd lean towards Spence over Gotts there, but Gotts is off the back of a pretty solid week himself. He did score, I believe, against Morecambe. Just double checking. Yes, he did score, but also picked up the yellow card to get to a 7-point return. So yeah, I personally lean towards Spence just because of you've got a player who's more consistently shooting. But then there is another option in Ben Whitfield, who's on loan from Burton, I believe. 3 assists and a goal in his 8 games at Barrow so far this season since joining in January. He takes corners too. His heat map against Morecambe, I was having a look. He has a big red spot in the corner flag, such as the amount of corners they had last weekend. Might share that on the socials later. I thought that was quite funny just to show you the state of play. But again, I don't know how much we're expecting Barrow to kind of see the ball here and get chances in those 2 games. They're pretty tight games. Wimbledon's home games right now are very cagey. They're trying to get over the line for promotion. Port Vale could easily just open them up and walk away with that one. So in terms of the creativity side of things, it's like got Spence and Whitfield in particular. That's kind of what you're relying on. Whitfield has averaged 6 points a game at Barrow though so far, but his interceptions are low. So yeah, like I feel like 2 away games, 2 tough games, interceptions is kind of like what you're going to lean on a bit more, and you've got a few players there who don't really average it. So I think I am going to take Sam Foley. I think that is a good shout. He's at 0.5% selection at the moment. Averages 5 points. He's off the back of a 12-point game against Morecambe where he had 5 interceptions. He picked up 3 interceptions against Accrington the game before that. 3 interceptions and a goal against Notts County. That's the kind of fixture that's more equivalent to the 2 they've got coming up. So you know, maybe some value in that. So I think Foley should be good for a few interceptions, especially playing in that back 3. Against Port Vale, it will almost be coming up against a front 3 against a back 3. So could be good value for interceptions there, and probably similar against Wimbledon as well. They'll probably go 3-4-3-esque as they have been doing recently. So yeah, it could be good value on both fronts there. So Foley slots into my midfield as our team starts to come together. So next, the other team, well, the other double game week fixture is Carlisle versus MK Dons. Carlisle have two home games here, so they've got Bromley on Saturday and then MK Dons on Tuesday. Bromley not a bad side away from home, actually. They've got a pretty good record, and Carlisle themselves are bottom of the league. So on the surface, it's not really a standout fixture to go diving into. So kind of have to see if there's anything that stands out on the stats. Their second game is against MK Dons, who, MK Dons are just terrible right now. So I'll get onto them a little bit more in a minute. But there could be some value in that Tuesday game. A couple of players that stand out for me from Carlisle: Sam Lavelle and Terrell Thomas, their defensive pairing. Lavelle's averaging just under 8 points a game in his last 8 games, and Thomas just over 8 points a game. They've been tough to beat recently, Carlisle. 7 goals conceded in their last 8 games, and they've kept 3 clean sheets in that time, which is why I was using the 8 game thing there for Lavelle and Thomas, just to kind of see how they've been doing recently. Thomas does edge out Lavelle on clearance numbers, 7.9, 6.4, and he also does it on shots per 90, 0.92 to 0.84. I mean, centre backs aren't really big shooters, but it's always nice to have that threat. Going into 2 games to see if there is any chance of us picking up a goal. So yeah, I think that I kind of like the look of Thomas. I think the Bromley game's tough. I do think the Bromley game's tough. You've got Michael Cheek in particular for Bromley, but a few other dangerous players as well right now. They're kind of in a position where their season isn't quite over. They are they're 6 points off of the playoff places, so they're kind of in that kind of like do or die thing of like, if they can keep winning, keep knocking on the door. But the issue is the top 7 are on pretty good form. They're down in 11th. There's a few teams to leapfrog to get into the battle, but they have been in pretty good form in the last 8 games. Probably a third in the form table, so that is quite interesting. I think that I don't know. I feel like, yeah, for Carlisle is a tough one, but with Bromley having that attacking threat, those clearance numbers could come in handy here. So I'm leaning towards taking Terrell Thomas. Up front as well, you got Matthew Dennis has 2 goals for Carlisle in his spell there. Hasn't played too much. 2.8 shots per 90 as well for him. Both Bromley and MK Dons do concede goals on the road. I know Bromley are good on the road, but it's not without fault. They did concede 2 to Tranmere, for example, last weekend. That's a Tranmere side who just don't score goals at all. So Dennis is almost a shout here, and it's kind of also the MK Dons game for this one I'm leaning to, because they're just so poor right now. When you have a look at like the form table in the last 8 games, well, MK Dons are bottom of that. If you look at the last 8 away games, MK Dons are bottom of that. They've drawn 1 and lost 7. They've conceded 18 goals in those last 8 away games. Only Newport have conceded more goals than that. Bromley have also conceded 13 goals in 8 away games. So there's those numbers I was talking about, that they do concede goals on the road. So Matthew Dennis kind of becomes an option in my head, because Carlisle need these wins. They need these points. It's 2 home games, and whilst they've been terrible at home, and they are second last in the form table in the last 8 games, and at home they're last in the form table in the last 8 games, and just in general I think they are as well. They've only 1 win in 8, but like, it's one of those things of like, well, if you do want to take a player on a double, then do you want to take an MK Dons player or a Carlisle player? If it was just raw quality, I'd want an MK Dons player, but I don't think I want to touch anyone right now, seeing as they are averaging so low in the points return. Carlisle are 9 points from safety, but do have this game in hand. So like win the game in hand and the results go their way this weekend, they could find themselves 3 points from safety and the picture's completely changed. There's a bit of hope in there. And really the only goal threat they kind of have is Matthew Dennis. He's since coming in, he scored twice. He looks pretty good. I think like he showed a bit of promise at MK Dons, but never actually delivered it. I think that it's kind of the only only real option. So I'm tempted to take Dennis here with the two games. Like certainly kind of stands out. Like his average points look awful, but it's 2 goals in 3 games for him. And before that it's just it's a couple of substitute appearances for Carlisle. So he's only actually played 6 games for them, so to score twice, but he definitely hasn't played 6 full 90s for them. It's actually quite low on that. So yeah, it does take shots. Is kind of their main goal threat. I'm tempted to take him here with the 2 home games. I think it's an interesting shout anyway. And yeah, lastly was MK Dons, and I honestly there's no one that just stands out to me in that team right now. Gilby and Crowley have the quality. Danilo Orsi has the quality, but they're not winning games. Their season just seems to be coming to a halt. They've been so disappointing recently. They sit in 18th. They're 12 points above relegation. They're not getting relegated, but they're not getting promoted either. They've just been rubbish recently. So I think I'm just going to leave MK Dons alone. I do think they could be a team to kind of look at who's playing them, and Carlisle are playing them in the double. So they also have a game against Cheltenham. So Cheltenham can be quite fun at home. So they do have a couple of players there where I'm like, there's potential for that. But yeah, so right now my team, as I've been building it, looks like this. So I'd have Amos in goal, Connor Hall and Terrell Thomas at the back, Sam Foley and Matthew Dennis up front. Sorry, Foley in midfield, Dennis up front. So I'd have 2 spaces left in my team. So I have to have at least one more midfielder, and then I can pick a defender, midfielder, or attacker. So this is kind of like where my team would sit at the moment, picking it. And then it would be there's no one else from the double game weeks I really want to force into my team. I think I've taken a good number of them, but I don't want to be adding any more really, because I just think that 3 of the 4 teams just aren't that good. They don't have too many standout players. Even going double Carlisle in my head is a bit of a risk, but I'm gonna take it with the double. I don't want to be leaving points on the board. So you kind of look elsewhere, and first of all, I guess you could look at the usual suspects, right? You've got Gillespie and Jones for Charlton. So Charlton are at Peterborough. Charlton have obviously just been so good recently. They did concede a goal last weekend, which was the first in a few weeks. But they have been really solid. They played Peterborough not too long ago actually and beat them 2-1 at home. So you'd think they could do it again, but Peterborough are one of those sides who have the threats up front to probably probably cause Charlton a few issues. I think Gillespie right now in his form is almost too good to leave out. He's contributing further up the pitch. He's picking up ridiculous clearance numbers right now. Last weekend against Wigan, he had an assist, 6 clearances, a couple of tackles. Gets 8 points without the clean sheet. Weekend before, he does get the clean sheet, but a few more bonus points taken to 9 points. Away at Stockport, 15 clearances to help him on to 13 points. Scored against Barnsley, 10 clearances, 18 points. These are very big numbers. I guess in away games similar, maybe it'd be like away to Leyton Orient, which happened recently, and he scored and got 7 clearances in a 2-1 win, so got 12 points there. But then it's like, the goals for defenders aren't overly repeatable all the time. He did actually score in the return fixture against Peterborough as well. But yeah, it's one of those where you wonder how, if you take away the goal contributions, how the points faring up. But he's still a threat, and Charlton are kind of play that kind of football, which leads to set piece opportunities, which leads to chances for him to score. So Gillespie definitely in contention for this week. I was having to think of some Bradford defenders. I've taken Walker a few times in goal recently, but they have a tough game against Colchester and are off the back of that 1-0 home loss to Tranmere. So you know, it's a tough one to like decipher really. You know, you've got Baldwin has only returned 3 and 2 points recently. Shepherd 4 and 3 points recently. Critchlow hasn't been playing. Huntington in and out of the team as well. Halliday 2 and 4 points recently. So like, you know, they've kind of hit a point where the clean sheet run has ended, and when their defenders aren't getting the clean sheets, they're not really get high point scorers. So it kind of leads me away from, you know, Colchester have enough threats to cause Bradford trouble. Could be a good thing for defensive actions, but could be a bad thing if we don't get that clean sheet. And then someone else I have on my list here is Sonny Carey of Blackpool. They've got an away game against Northampton. I saw Northampton recently, and they actually looked really good at Leyton Orient. Yeah, really threatening, really good high press. But I wonder how they play at home. Might be a little bit different. Sonny Carey has kind of come into the team recently, and his last 3 games he got 19 points with 2 goals against Barnsley. Then he scored again against Cambridge with 10-point return, and he scored again against Leyton Orient with another 10-point return. So what's that, 39 points in 3 games, 13-point average. It's pretty hard to look away from right now. He's 0.1% selected, so maybe people not picking up on this just yet. He's kind of like you know, he's one of those players who, when he doesn't score though, doesn't really provide you much else. You know, he's only got 3 interceptions in 28 games. His game is very much going forward. He's kind of been playing off out wide if they play the 4-4-2. If they play that 5-3-2, he slots into the middle. So interesting to see how that line up against Northampton. But listen, he's a player who does get forward, will have opportunities. He yeah, he's dangerous. He knows where the back of the net is recently, especially. I'm just gonna have a look at his shots per game here. Actually, and yeah, 2.66 shots per game, so a high shot taker for a midfielder. Definitely in contention, I'd say too. Is there anyone else who just kind of stands out to me going into this? Again, I'd need a midfielder, so I'm definitely tempted by Carey, and then I'd have a kind of a toss up between adding another defender, adding a midfielder, adding a forward. You know, no one's really going 2 strikers too frequently, but you know, it's still an option. You know, if there is a good striker out there, I just don't know if there is right now, especially on the shorter game week. If we have a look at like who did well last week, well, an interesting one, Jovan McCarmer for Lincoln off the back of a hat trick, so 29 points. But he's really like stepped up recently. You know, he's played 34 games and has 7 goals and 6 assists, but 3 goals and assists last week. Then before that was a away game against Birmingham, tough one, nothing happened. Before that, assist and a goal against Crawley. Before that, assist and a goal off the bench against Barnsley. So yeah, what's that? 5 goals, 3 assists have all come in the last 4 games. So they've got Exeter City this weekend, and Exeter themselves are Exeter sit 16th in the league. They actually they kind of look like they might be falling a bit close to relegation, but they actually look okay at the moment. Away from home though, they've lost 4 of their last 8. They conceded 12 goals. Lincoln right now at home have been improving. You know, they try to find them here on the home form table. 3 wins in 8 at home, but 2 wins in 4, 8 goals scored. You know, definitely have a threat at home. 8 goals scored. I mean, 5 of them came last weekend. I just feel like this could be a similar game to Bristol Rovers game. So if they get ahead, they could run away with it. But Exeter are quite stubborn. I think they're a bit more stubborn than Bristol Rovers. If we look at the last 8 away matches for Exeter, even though they're down the table, it's 12 goals conceded in 8, whereas Bristol Rovers are 16 goals conceded. Crawley Town, 25 goals conceded in 8 games away from home. They did just announce Scott Lindsay returning last night. So, I guess that would kind of lead me on to who are Crawley playing. Well, Crawley are playing Bristol Rovers. So yeah, that is a maybe one to look at attackers for, but maybe not defenders. Other big hitters in big games. Wrexham Stockport County play each other. That is a tough game to kind of look at. Maybe you kind of look for a Wrexham clean sheet in that one. Your Clayworths, Okonkwo's if you haven't got a keeper. I think that is kind of where you'd be leaning to there. But again, it's Stockport. You don't really want to be going against them too much. League Two leaders Walsall go to Gillingham, but Walsall's form has just been a bit uneasy recently. Second place, Doncaster. The second place, Bradford, and they go to Colchester. They host Colchester, and like I was saying, that's a bit of a tough one. Colchester in 7th on really, really good form, so it's tough to take a player from there. Maybe I focus too much on the fixtures, but it's just it's an interesting way to look at it. Is there anywhere where someone's really going to stand out? Because if you're taking someone who, I don't know, you're banking on their form, but they've got a really tough game, it's no given, especially further forward. Strikers are going to get less chances in tougher games, and defenders will probably have more to do in tougher games, so maybe it's a way to look for there, but also going to come under more pressure. The clean sheet is quite a heavy points thing to just gamble on in a game like that, I feel. So Swindon, Accrington is another one. Harry Smith's been on good form. He's been good all season, but again, he's kind of hit a bit of a hot streak, and Swindon are also in a bit of a hot streak. So Harry Smith at Swindon is certainly one I'm kind of looking at if I did want to go 2 strikers. But I think where I'm landing at the moment is I think I want to take Gillespie in defence to kind of cover that Charlton, even though they're away to Peterborough. I think I do want to cover that. And then I do need a midfielder, and I am definitely leaning towards Sonny Carey away at Northampton. But yeah, I think it's kind of where I sit at the moment in my team. So I'll give you a quick rundown of what we've sorted on this pod so far. So Amos in goal, Hall in defence with Thomas and Gillespie, Foley, Carey in midfield, Dennis up front. And the 2 teams I have to win this week, I've both double game weeks. I've gone for Port Vale and I've gone for Carlisle. I just don't have any faith in MK Dons. I do like Port Vale, so I'm absolutely fine with their 2 fixtures. It's the Carlisle one, which I guess is the tricky one, and it feels weird to be taking the team who are bottom of the league. But I don't really want to. I don't. Barrow have Wimbledon and Port Vale. I don't really want to be taking that. I mean, I know it's the 2 away point potentials, and Wimbledon do occasionally just have that their home games are tight enough that maybe you could back Barrow to go there and do something, but I'm not going to. I just feel that but I can't see them winning both games to begin with, and then it's like I can definitely see them losing one of the 2 games, and then our points are just coming down. And then so then it kind of leaves me with Carlisle, and I think the Bromley game at home is tough, but I think it's definitely something they can get a result from, and I think they can beat MK Dons. And then we're looking at we've overachieved the ceiling of like 9/11 points for the away, a good away win. Is there anyone that stands out first of all for a 2-0 or a 2+0 away win? I don't think there is. Walsall maybe at Gillingham is the only one I would kind of lean to. Charlton at Peterborough, but Peterborough, aren't too bad. Blackpool at Northampton, I maybe just recency bias, but when I saw Northampton, I was impressed by them. Blackpool was off the back of a loss, and there's nothing else that stands out, for like that big away win. So then, I don't think we're missing out on 11 points here. Then it's 9 points, and do I think Carlisle can get more than 9 points in two fixtures? I think they can. Win one of them, you get 7, and then just avoid defeat in the other, and we'll be on 10 at least. So yeah, that's kind of my thinking for this week at the moment. Yeah, I think it's an interesting set of fixtures though, definitely. I don't know what everyone else thinks. I think you get a lot of in these shorter weeks. You get a lot of template teams, a lot of teams that look very similar. I actually haven't had a look on any of the socials yet to see what everyone else is doing. I'd be interested to see how similar the team I've picked is to the ones that are floating around there. Because I feel like maybe I've just explained what people have already been talking about going into this game week. But hey, maybe not. Maybe I've thrown a few players into the ring there that people haven't thought of. But yeah, do let us know what everyone is thinking this week. Are people going like doubles across the board? Are you staying away from the doubles? I don't think you should be staying away from Port Vale anyway. But the other 3 teams, are people just kind of put off by that, or am I just missing someone really obvious? I think kind of done it a bit differently this week, so you kind of don't have Ian's thoughts to bounce off of, Ian's suggestions to bounce off of. He usually comes up with someone who's pretty out there, pretty interesting. As for my 0.1 pick for the week, I mean, Dennis is 0.1, Carey's 0.1. Though either of those two, I guess I can take. I'm gonna take Matthew Dennis. I think in the double game week, why not? I can see him going off higher than 0.1, but yeah, let's take Matthew Dennis as our 0.1. I think that's a good shout. It's not the most. I mean, it's interesting taking the striker. So now I've locked him in. He's the one player now in the team that I can't change. So there we go. But yeah, as the striker, he's the one position I think is sometimes hardest to fill, especially on a week like this. So that's half the reason I'm just gonna lock him in. But yeah, no, thank you very much for listening. I know it's a bit different. We'll be back to normal next week, and we'll also be back to the Thursday schedule. Touch wood. It's just been a busy couple of weeks for myself and Ian. But yeah, we'll be back on it. We are trying to push the pod out there a bit more as well. It's just been a busy time for us, but we do appreciate everyone who is listening. Everyone recurring listeners, really do appreciate anyone who's given us a review, everyone who's given us a thumbs up. Yeah, it does mean a lot that people are out there listening to us, and yeah, hoping to kind of grow the platform over the next few months or so. Have some things in the pipeline that I think could be quite exciting. We've had a few projects that kind of haven't been able to fully share with you for a few reasons as well. So like, we are trying to do some other things, give you some other content. But yeah, sometimes, both in like full-time jobs, it just doesn't quite line up sometimes, doesn't quite go to plan. Life happens, and haven't been as, I guess, as engaging as we want to be, but we're definitely trying to improve things on that front. So yeah, I did have an idea as well. Maybe if people have listened this far, give us a heads up on this. We did have an idea of, the way I've done this one, of maybe doing something like this, like a little weekend preview, live each week somewhere. People can kind of get involved. You can kind of see, I guess, us preview the weekend or something. Maybe one of us, maybe both of us, maybe alternating, talking for our team, talking for our picks, talking through fixtures that we are interested in. I think there's something that's kind of missing in the EFL sphere a bit, is just like a good preview show. There's really good review shows, there's really good content out there, but maybe just something where you can all just kind of come and get involved, and let's preview the weekend together, and something like that could be interesting. So we do have ideas floating around, but yeah, it's all in the pipeline. But yeah, I'm just rounding a bit now. But yeah, we do have some ideas to to trial at some point. But yeah, no, thanks all for listening. Sorry that was a bit different this week, but I hope you all did enjoy, and we'll be back next week. Thank you, everyone. Take it easy.